instinct. Okay, when we talk about instinct, we're talking a lot about the pre-programmed, right? These are pre-programmed behaviors and actions. I think of mandalas as an opportunity for focus. How many people were in geometry class? And yeah,
Right triangle.
I bet. What? Okay, it's right triangle. And what is right triangle? Pythagorean theorem, right? So the Pythagorean theorem is what I'm using as a framework for trying to understand some relationships of these concepts, okay? And the Pythagorean theorem helps to understand the ratio at which these concepts will interact and relate to each other, okay? So it's cool. I mean, when you look at this kind of really simple geometry, it actually helps to activate the part of your subconscious mind, yeah, that maybe you don't know a lot about, but it gets activated in a unique way. Okay, so just by having it in this shape will help understand it. Right. So obviously there's a small and a bigger and a biggest, right? And the two small ones, basically, those two small ones equal the big one by volume. Right. It's a squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay, is kind of the ratio of all of it, right? So that'll tell you something when we start to go into these concepts and what they mean. I'll try to keep this really short so then we can talk about it. Okay, so then there's the R at the top and then there's ask, right? So we're going to start at the bottom, the K. K stands for knowledge, okay? K stands for knowledge. So what is knowledge? Information, yeah. What else?
Stored in you.
Yeah, could be stored in you. What else? Anybody else? Knowledge.
Knowing.
Knowing, just knowing, right?
Makes the world go round.
Yep. What is that term, knowledge is power, right? I don't know if that's true really. What I think though is packaged knowledge, like knowledge that's taken and then made into a useful form, that's power. You know what I mean? So knowing that 2 plus 2 equals 4 is 4, that's knowledge. But then what can you do with that? And that becomes power, right? The application of that knowledge, right? So knowledge is just the facts and information. Usually it's through experience or education that we have. Now, there's 3 ways of thinking about knowledge, at least according to me. There's instinct, intellect, and intuition. Okay, so but these go in this box in a way. Which way do you think these go into a box? If each box is one is bigger than small, what do you think is the least important? Instinct, intellect, or intuition? Intellect? What else? Anybody else? Instinct, intellect, and intuition. Making you guys think tonight. Go ahead. I think it's instinct. Okay?
It's the least important.
I think that's how I put it, it's the least important. So just put that in the box. And we'll talk about it. You know, maybe you guys can totally disagree, you know, once we start talking about it.
It goes
In the smallest box. Yeah, there's a K in the small box. And then intellect, I think, is the middle. So that's the next biggest. And I think intuition is the biggest box. Okay? I think that's the most important, and I think it's the least understood and talked about inside of any type of formal education and life in general, right? You hear all great CEOs, all great inventors, where did the information come from ultimately? They have no idea. Most of them just say, I don't know, it just came to me, right? Where's that just coming from, right? So I think there's something important there. Okay, the next one is S. What's that? Skill, right? So in skill, I have 3 things, of course. Now, don't get confused by the language I'm about to use, and I'll explain it. But I call it mantra, mudra, and mandala. Okay? Mantras, mudras, and mandalas are the skills. And I think mantra is a small box. Mudra is the middle, and mandala is the big box. And we'll talk about those and what those mean. Okay, so mantra is a small, mudra is the middle box, and mandala is the large. Mantra, mudra is M-U-D-R-A. Okay? And then the A, apply, right? So I like acronyms a lot because I think they help with memory and they help with learning things. So with the A, we have academics. That's a small box. Academics. And the middle box is associations. And the big box is attitude. So just really quick, instinct. Okay, when we talk about instinct, we're talking a lot about the pre-programmed, right? These are pre-programmed behaviors and actions, okay? Usually they're passed on through species, usually by way of DNA, right? They can also be passed on when you're a child as well. Like you can learn an instinct from your mother or your father that you're not really aware of, that gets planted in the subconscious mind. So usually we're talking about subconscious programming is the idea, right? These are things that we don't really necessarily have control over. You know what I mean? Like when somebody gets into a fight, what happens? Fight or flight, right? We go into a sympathetic mode. Heart rate increases, breathing rate increases, eyes dilate, right? Your muscles get bigger, hair puffs up, right? That's all instinctual. You're not even thinking about doing that. You're not sitting there, okay, go hair, go breath. You know, you're not telling yourself to do these things, right? The other side of the sympathetic is the rest and digest. That's when you're really relaxed and calm. Okay? Those are all within the subconscious. So that's all instinct, right? Now the intellect is that part that we've learned. This is like the learned behavior. This is usually all the knowledge and information that we accept as true and relevant as a society, right? As people, right? Because your social and political structure that you live in can determine what you take to be intellectual knowledge, valuable or unvaluable, right? That's changed throughout history, right? At one point, the Earth revolved. I mean, now it revolves around the sun, sorry. And it used to be that the sun revolved around the Earth, right? Just because of knowledge and intellect is the idea. And then the final thing is intuition. So who knows what intuition is?
It's your gut telling you what to do.
Okay, your gut. What else?
Just kind of that spark of like
Spark of
inspiration.
something?
You just kind of described it as being like outside yourself. Like
Okay.
Edison didn't know how
Yeah.
he figured out the light bulb. Just kind of
Came to him. Like light bulb. Came to him. Anybody else?
Natural knowing.
Natural knowing.
Inner guidance.
Inner guidance, right?
inspiration.
Inspiration. Yeah, it could be. So it's tough because the thing is, they don't talk about this in school at all, right? No one ever says, like, here's our intuition class. So when I was in medical school, I organized remote viewing classes. I don't know if everybody ever has heard of remote viewing, but we would set up, we had a set of lockers, and we had 3 teams. Each team would pick an item and would hide it in one of the lockers. We wouldn't tell the other team what the item was or what locker. And we'd go through this process of remote viewing that the military uses, right? Back in the 70s and 60s, they started doing it. And we got some amazing results. Like, it was incredible what people would figure out just through their intuition. And then I was like, well, if this stuff's real, like, I'm going to test it out. 'Cause I'm a scientist. Like, that's my background. Published researcher, biomedicine. Like, there's got to be a process of testing this out. So I was like, I'm going to take the ultimate test. I'm not going to study for my tests in medical school. I'm not going to study. I'm going to see what happens. If this stuff, intuition stuff, is real, I'll know the answers, right? Now, the first thing that happened was that I would just randomly start walking around before the test, talking to people, and they would start asking me questions. And then they would give me the answer. And those answers ended up being on the test, right? So it was kind of like this weird way that I was getting information. Like, I don't know if I was just more aware of it, and I was more looking for information because I was like, I didn't study and I'm freaking out, right? But something worked, you know? I was able to get information and knowledge in a way that I didn't think was possible. It wasn't my typical logical method of studying over and over and repeating this information over and over again, right? So I think it needs to be taught. I think the intuition is one of the most important aspects that we need to develop as human beings. And it's one of the key things in understanding your source of knowledge and where knowledge comes from so you know what you want in life. But you have to develop a relationship with it, learn to trust it, right? So, who here trusts their intuition? Yeah, say that. I trust my intuition.
I trust my intuition.
All right, I trust my intuition.
I trust my intuition.
One more time. I trust my intuition.
I trust my intuition.
Yes. So it takes a lot of work to trust it, to be honest. It takes a lot of testing it and experimenting, and you have to develop a private language with your intuition. That's one of the key things. So a lot of learning and intuition is all about learning what type of private language you want to have with your intuition, so you can interpret it logically and intellectually, and then share that with other people. So it becomes meaning, right? So there's this relationship still, as you can see, between intuition and intellect and instinct. I'm not saying that instinct is not important at all, right? I'm just saying it's one of the lower things of importance. We shouldn't be ruled by the DNA of our ancestors, right? Or the DNA of species that went before us, right? That's very limiting in life. But at times, you want instinct to kick in, you know? As martial arts training, we train to be calm in any situation so that our sympathetic mode doesn't kick in. So we don't go into fight or flight, we stay really calm and relaxed. But at the same time, we let our instinct of training over and over and over again to kick in, right? So I'm not thinking about what needs to happen in the moment. I'm just acting and reacting. Skill. So mantras, mudras, and mandalas. Mantras are just the words we say. They're the language we have, right? So a mantra is a language or a thought that's repeated over and over and over again in your head. So it's important to understand the mantras that you're saying inside your own mind, right? When I was starting my first business as a social entrepreneur with no business training, my only mantra is, this is going to work. That's all I said to myself, like, this is going to work. This has got to happen, right? And nothing was going to stop that. That was my mantra. And people would say, oh, that's not going to work. You know, people would say, that's not going to work. You know, someone's tried that before, it doesn't work. I'd say, it's going to work. This has got to happen, right? And so that was my mantra. Mudras are just shapes we take in life, the postures we hold, right? How we stand. But it's also our physiology, right? So one of the things you want to look at is, how do you stand? Like, it's very important in business meetings, you'll discover that how you sit and how you talk, right? So what's a mandala? Anybody know? What is it?
Portal to a different dimension.
Okay, could be portal to a different dimension, for sure.
Well, different things, it can be like a painting or a puzzle,
Yes.
and it can be applied to someone's life.
Yes. Anything else? Mandalas? So on a very basic level, like the basic concept of mandala, and the reason we have mandalas is to create a picture of the world, a certain picture of the universe, either that you live in or you want to create, right? So it's usually like you'll see like the mandala of the medicine Buddha. It'll be the Buddha sitting there and have all these things around him. What does his universe look like? What's his world look like? That's used to focus his mind on what he wants to make real. Okay? So that's the way I think of them. I think of mandalas as an opportunity for focus. Right? And that's the key, that's one of the key concepts there. So if you have your focus, your posture and physiology and the language actually creates the state that you operate in life. It creates a certain type of state. Okay? And I think focus is the most important.